I joined the Interact Club when I was a sophomore, and I met Mrs. Littlefield, who is a guidance counselor here at Spalding, and Maggie Mason, who was a senior at the time, and she was the president of Interact, and Mrs. Littlefield was the advisor for Interact, and they had both just come back from a trip to Zimbabwe. They had gone on a missions trip, and I had really wanted to go to Africa for a couple years by that point, and so I asked them if I could go with them on the next trip. I have felt really passionate about Africa, and so I always knew that I wanted to go to Africa somehow. And so when I found out that I knew people that had gone to Zimbabwe, I thought that was perfect because I didn't really care where in Africa I went, I just wanted to go to Africa, so Zimbabwe fit that bill. We went in with lots of different projects for the trip, so we helped build a few houses, we helped reconstruct a road, and we visited a few orphanages. I went to Zimbabwe with the United Church of Christ in Wakefield, and so they had helped raise money for some of the projects that we had done, and then the Interact Club had also raised money for some of the projects, but I paid for the trip myself, but we kind of had the backing of the church. In Zimbabwe, almost everyone attends church. I think about 80% of the population is Christian. Religion is just a big part of their life there, and it's different because they have to count on getting their basic needs more daily or weekly, where here they're kind of set for us, but they just really rely on their religion to get them through their circumstances. It is a bit of a patriarchal society, so men are respected more, but women still do have jobs and that kind of thing. We went to a celebration in Zika, which is a rural village, and the rural places are more tied into the culture and tradition than some of the cities, but they got all dressed up in costumes and they had dancing and singing and drumming, which was really neat. And so they'll have these celebrations when something big happens, and we used it as a way of fundraising to help build the road, so the community would put money in when they liked the dancing or that kind of thing, and that raised money for our project. I met Bertha the first day I was in Zimbabwe, and we stayed with her, and she runs a huge empowerment program called Jekesa Pfungwa, which means open your minds, and she runs all different kinds of programs across the country, and so these empowerment programs help women to start up businesses. They teach women about domestic violence. She helps women escape unfair inheritance laws. So she really does help women and help the empowerment of women. Bertha was a really big influence, and I didn't really realize at the time how big her program was, but I came home and Googled it, and I found out that she really was amazing, and she had all these different kinds of programs, and they were really in depth. And so I just thought that that was really cool, and I had been really struck by the women's roles in society. So I came home and I wanted to do my independent study on women's empowerment and research more about how they are influenced and what their roles are in society. I noticed that there was a clear gap between the older generation and the younger generation in terms of the females and the goals that they had. And the older generation were it seemed like they were compliant with the cultural norms, whereas the younger generation really want to change things, and the girls really have these hopes and dreams and want to pursue a career. And the girls I met, they wanted to be doctors and lawyers and engineers, so they really have high hopes for their lives and high expectations. There were a lot of similarities between the teenagers there and the teenagers here, and that we all go through a lot of the same things, stress about school and stress about relationships, that kind of thing. The goals do differ though, in that they kind of have a different education system where in high school, they have more of a set course of what they might want to pursue further. So they kind of have that focus before we do, know what they want to do maybe and have a little bit of training before they go to college. But there are school fees, so sometimes it's hard for them to pay those school fees, so they might not be able to go to college and get a degree, but they do have those hopes and dreams and want to find a good job. My expectations completely were shattered. I went in just expecting some things, and I didn't really know exactly what I was expecting, but it wasn't like I had expected, and it was just a big change for me to get used to and to get in. And it took me a few days, maybe even up to a week, to really get used to the culture and just to let go of my expectations and just let the trip happen. And once that happened, that was really good, and I could just settle in, and it was great after that. I had known that I wanted to go into the mission field, but then the first week in Zimbabwe, I thought maybe that wasn't actually the right field for me. But then once I started loving Zimbabwe and loving the work we were doing and the people and everything about it, then I knew that I did want to pursue a career in the mission field. And in 2016, I'm going back to Zimbabwe. We're putting a trip together for that summer, and I'm very excited about that, to see the friends and the family that I made there and just to see all the people again. I am raising money for a medical clinic right now with the Interact Club, and so when we were in Zika, the rural community, we found a need for a hospital of some sort because the nearest one is 9 miles away and the people in Zika live in a valley, and so when someone is sick or dying or giving birth, they have to carry them up the side of the mountain on stretchers or in wheelbarrows. So we thought that it would be a really cool thing to be able to put a medical clinic right in Zika, and we found an abandoned building that we can fix up for around $2,000 or $3,000. So we're raising money to fix up that medical clinic and make it operational. So when I go back to Zimbabwe, I'd really like to work on that.